Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining today. We have Paul Bacheski from Webasto presenting today. He's going to give us an overview of the Scholastic series and a diagnostic overview. But I'd also like to take an opportunity to remind you that there is a promo going on right now. There are a handful of parts on the Webasto dropship that are on special, and that promo ends December 15th. And there is also an additional promo that Paul will highlight, and that is on a diagnostic that they are offering. With that said, I'm going to turn everything over to Paul.
Good morning, everybody. As Gina said, the last webinar that we did, we went through the Scholastic series product and we showed you how it operated, what made it tick on the inside. What I want to do today is take you through the diagnostic system, how to use it, and how to diagnose the system thoroughly. From there, I want to touch base with our new Thermotop C product, which is now is available as far as production here at Bluebird, and also touch on the diagnostic system with that, and then we will end up with just a few comments. So if I can go back and just give you a real brief review as far as how this product works. Basically, when you first turn this product on, you are activating a 12-volt motor. That 12-volt motor is then driving a cup fan, excuse me, where we are bringing air in through the bottom of this unit, pushing it through the system, and actually burning the fuel. As it goes through. Fuel comes out of the nozzle, you make a spark with a coil, ignite the fuel and create a flame. Once that flame is made, there is a photocell which sits right on the side of the unit, or I'm sorry, right on the side of the nozzle area right here. That part changes resistance with the light, and it's the internal signal that the system is looking for to say, hey, I am operating. That process will keep going until the water temperature inside of the heater hits roughly about 180 degrees. At that point, the unit turns off and it will remain idle until your water temperature drops approximately 10-12 degrees, and then that system is just repeated. So kind of a quick overview on how that system works. The diagnostic box looks much like the ECU, which sits on the side of the unit. There's 3 wiring harnesses that sit on the bottom of it. All 3 of those harnesses are of different sizes and different shapes. You simply take them out of the bottom of that and you insert them into the bottom of the control unit. As you can see on the control unit, you've got 3 lights, you've got 2 switches, and you've got 2 buttons that will allow you to go through and start operating each individual part. First button on the left-hand side is labeled water pump. When you first plug this thing in, on the B plug, which is the middle plug on the system, B4, that pin is the main power line coming in, saying that you've got power coming to the heater. Once you plug that in, you will be noticing that the light for the main power is going to come on, and it's basically just telling you you've got a good 12-volt source coming to the heater. If that light is flickering at all, if it's dim for whatever reason, you've got a power problem where you don't have a good 12-volt source coming to the heater. And again, that's being indicated by a red wire that comes on the middle plug, or what we refer to as the B plug, saying that you've got good power coming to the heater. The first switch on the left-hand side is labeled water pump. When you flip that on, you're activating the pump, which sits on the front of the unit. Obviously, if that does not happen, you either have a bad water pump or you've got a bad wiring harness in between the pump and going back to the control unit. Those connections that go into the bottom here are just spade connectors, so you want to make sure obviously that they're nice and tight and that you are making connection electrically back to that ECU. The next button over, or I'm sorry, the next switch over is labeled motor, and basically that is driving that 12 volt motor on the inside of the system. If you turn that on, you're activating that motor. That motor through a shaft is actually driving a combustion air fan as well as driving the back of the fuel pump. If you turn that on and that does not happen, that motor does not start, it's not saying up front that this motor is bad. On the front of the heater is an inertia switch, which is put in there to where if something catastrophic happens to the system or happens to the bus, in an accident, the bus rolls over, whatever it happens to be, that inertia switch is tied in series with that 12 volt motor. And it's put in there to where, again, if something catastrophic happens, disables the entire Webasto system. If you flip that switch and that motor doesn't go on, go to that inertia switch first. Maybe the driver hit a curb, maybe they took a speed bump at 20 miles an hour. Any hard jarring of the system can trip that switch and deactivate the motor. If you do push that switch down and that motor still does not come on, then we can start looking at either having a bad fan motor in there or again the wiring harness in between the ECU and that motor has somehow gone bad. Just kind of a side note, if you've got customers that are having issues with this switch kind of prematurely going off, get with me on the side, send me an email, give me a call, and there are a few things that can be done to assist in solving that. Moving forward, the first button on the left hand side is labeled ignition coil, and if you push and hold that, you're doing just that. You are giving 12 volts to the coil and allowing a spark to come across the two electrodes. You can hear this audibly with the burner head closed. It's not anything that you need to open it up in order to take a look at. And again, you just push the button and hold it, and you should be able to hear that thing zapping on the inside. It is very important that this coil apologize here with the mouse. It's very important that the coil is going in between the two electrodes and that your spark is not arcing between one electrode and the nozzle itself. Last button on the right hand side is labeled fuel solenoid. When you push that, you're giving 12 volts to a magnetic solenoid that sits on the side of the burner head. It is what allows the fuel in order to come out of the nozzle. Now, for that solenoid to get the 12 volts over to it, it does have to travel up through the regulating thermostats and the overheat thermostats that sit underneath the black cap on top of the heater. So if you go back and you push that fuel solenoid button and nothing is happening, you don't want to initially blame it on that fuel solenoid. You do need to go back and pull that black cap up, take an ohm meter to the regulating thermostat, the overheat thermostat, and the melt fuse, and make sure that all of those are closed. At this point, if you take your box, you turn your water pump on, you turn your fan motor on, you hold that ignition coil open and hit the fuel solenoid, you should be able to actually make a flame on the inside. And at that point, your flame control light, which is that photocell, that light should come on saying that that photocell has changed resistance. If that light does not come on, maybe you've got a lot of carbon sitting up inside of the nozzle area where that photocell is unable to read through it. Again, that light should come on nice and bright. It shouldn't waver. It shouldn't be dim by any means. If it is dim, maybe you have some light carbon that's starting on the inside of the unit and needs to be cleaned out. So obviously you can check this entire system by using this box without even opening up the head or opening up the burner head. If you find that everything works with this box, however it does not work when you plug it back into the ECU, it doesn't necessarily mean that this ECU is bad. We have to go through one final check and actually check this ECU, and it's very simple to do. The first thing that you want to do in order to check this is you want to make sure that everything on top of the heater is closed. And obviously if you were able to fire that unit off with your test box, odds are everything up in here is closed at that point. But go back and double check, make sure that everything has got continuity to it and everything is closed. At that point, what you want to do is you want to take a small jumper wire and you want to go between B4 and B1 on the control unit. B4 is the main power coming into the heater. We already know that we've got power there because when we hooked up our little test box, the light came on and indicated that we had a good 12 volts. If I take a jumper wire and I go between B4 and B1, B1 is where the signal is coming back from our timer telling the heater to turn on. If everything up top is closed and I put power on B4 and B1, the heater has to turn on. It has to run. If for any reason it does not, then this ECU is bad. So again, if you jump B4 to B1 and everything on top has got continuity, the heater has to operate. If it doesn't, then this control unit is bad. If it does operate, you have a problem with either your timer or behind the heater on the back panel is a relay, and it's basically a 12 volt relay that the timer is tagging. Something in between the timer, that relay, and the wiring harness is telling the heater not to turn on, which is the reason obviously for the failure. So kind of a very, very easy system to diagnose when you have that little diagnostic test box in your hand. Time-wise, to go through and to do all of that, you should be able to do it within just a few minutes. Nothing difficult at all to do. As I mentioned before, want to introduce you to the Thermotop C. It's a small 17,000 BTU unit. A lot of advantages, uses very little fuel. This product is now in production at Bluebird. You can order it on a brand new vehicle. I want to take you through and show you the individual parts of this thing prior to showing you how it operates. Just makes it a little bit easier to understand. There's only 5 parts to this entire product. 2 of them are external parts. The first just being a small circulation pump. It's tied right to the heater with a strap that's got 1 screw holding it in. The second external part is a fuel pump. It's a small diaphragm pulsing pump. This pump will sit somewhere on the frame rail very close to the fuel source or very close to the fuel tank. It is important that this thing is mounted horizontally and not vertically. And you will notice on the inlet side is a small inline fuel filter. So again, you've got 2 external parts, a water pump and a fuel pump. Internally, you only have 3 parts. You have a combustion air fan, which is actually the front portion of the heater here. There's 4 screws that hold that thing on. And when you pull it off, it kind of looks like this. You have an air inlet on the front, and that air is being thrown out of this hole. If I can go back here real quick, your water that comes in is coming into this water pump and exiting out of this part right here. And there is a small bead put onto this part. make sure you do not hook up coolant, or there's not a coolant line hooked up to that air intake. Generally, there will be a small tube that's installed onto this and kind of directing air into a clean spot and away from the way of travel. So again, make sure that you don't have coolant hooked up onto that port. So again, you take the 4 screws out, you can pull that part right off. You can see there's a 12 volt lead to it. If I would put 12 volts onto that lead, this fan sitting on top would actually start spinning and you would be feeling the air coming out of it. When you take that part off, what you're left looking at is a burner tube which sits down inside of the middle of the unit. That air that we're pushing out of that hole is actually cycling through all of these holes that go around on the outside. There's 4 holes that hold this tube on, or I'm sorry, 4 screws that hold this tube on, and you can pull it out and it looks like this. You have a lead coming up onto it, 12 volt lead, which is for a small glow pin, with this pipe right here being where the fuel is entering the system at. If I look at the inside of this tube, it looks like this. You can kind of see the little glow pin right here, and on the inside of it is almost like a wire meshing, much like a Brillo pad. This is where the fuel for the system is actually collecting, and then that air is coming around the outside of the tube. It's a little bit difficult to see in the picture here, but basically what we're doing is we're pushing the fuel, we're pushing the air, we're atomizing it off of this padding into a glow pin. We're hitting the flash point of diesel in order to create a flame. The only thing that you're left looking at after you pull this tube out is an empty heat exchanger. Again, with water port coming in and a water port coming out. Kind of a side view at what this thing looks like. Again, water in, water out. And then on top is the electronics. This entire part with the electronics and with the heat exchanger are all one assembly. You may notice that there's more screws that hold everything together, but you cannot purchase this as individual pieces. It all comes as one. So again, you only have 5 pieces that really make this thing operate. I want to show you real quick how this thing does operate once you turn it on. Once you turn the system on, the first thing that happens is the electronics sends a signal to all the working components. Sends one to the fan motor, sends one to the fuel pump, sends one to the coolant pump, and also sends one to the glow plug. And basically it's just looking for continuity. If there's not continuity at one of these places, the unit will not attempt to fire, and it will actually record that fault into the electronics that it did not fire. Once you turn the heater on, like I said, it goes through and it does that first process. The water pump will come on, start pushing water through the system. The glow plug will come on to start creating heat, and the fan motor will come on, starting pushing air through the system. After about 20 seconds or so, you'll hear this fuel pump starting to click at a very low rate of speed. And basically what it's doing is just delivering small droplets of fuel onto that padding. This whole starting process is a time sequence. And as we're delivering fuel, as I mentioned, it'll be at a very small rate of speed. You'll notice that that speed will start to increase very rapidly. And it may take 30 to 40 seconds for this process to start, but you'll hear that pump clicking slowly and then slowly increasing in speed. And basically we're bringing more fuel into the system, more air to the system, and making the flame. After about 40 to 50 seconds, we turn off this glow stick, thinking that we should have a flame established within inside of the system. At that point, the electronics will take a resistance value measuring of that glow stick, and basically what it's looking for is for the resistance value to remain high. That glow stick has a much higher resistance when it's hot as opposed to when it's cold. If that thing is sitting inside of a flame, obviously that glow stick is going to be very hot, and it's going to know that it's burning. If for some reason it notices that the resistance value is going down, it will say that it did not start. It will record that fault into the electronics and turn itself off. So maybe a little bit more of a complicated way that the thing operates, but it does it with a heck of a lot less pieces. Very advanced, very technical type of a part. If this thing does have a problem, for whatever reason, if it records the same exact fault, let's say you have you've got a bad circulation pump to the heater. If you turn it on and that circulation pump is not working, it will record that fault the first time. You try it a second time, it will record a second fault. On the third fault for the same failure, this heater will go to a complete lockout to where no matter what you try to do, it will not operate. In order to unlock it, and don't shoot the messenger here, some very well-paid German engineer came up with this system. I have it written down here for you, but you can see that there's a process to go through of actually turning the unit on, crawling underneath the vehicle, taking out the main fuse to the system, counting to 5, re-putting it back in, turning the system back off, turning it back on again, and repeating the process. Is the way that you can go through it manually to unlock the system. Another way to do it is through a diagnostic system which is available for this product. The diagnostic system will come with both a hardware and with a software kit. Like any other software programs, we're constantly updating it. We do have a website called techwebasto.com. When you go to that website, through a software link, you can go through and actually find the software that's available for it. The most current software today is version 2.16. If you download version 2.16, you'll be able to work every product that's out there from today all the way back into history. If you already have this diagnostic software, and if you're running on a older version, some of the newer heaters will not operate onto it. You need to go into this website and update it. There is no cost as far as updating your diagnostic software, but you do have to register onto the site. Give us your name, give us your email address, and then you'll be tagged back with a password in order to get into it. Once you have the software loaded, you take your hardware kit and it interfaces in between both obviously your laptop and the heater itself. The diagnostic plug is located inside of the fuse harness. There's a small fuse block that's right at the heater. You open that up, you'll see 2 small mini fuses into it, and then also an additional plug. That's where it is interfaced in. One very important part that you need to make sure is that you hook up the diagnostic system to the same power supply that the heater itself is operating off of. There'll be a 12-volt harness that comes off of it. Hook it up directly to the batteries that are powering the heater itself. Once you open this up and open up the software, the first tab is going to be labeled Diagnostics. And once you bring that up, you can go to Device Selection, and it will give you a complete listing of the different parts or the different model products that operate off of this diagnostic system. What you're looking for this one is labeled Thermotop C. It'll also have the word aftermarket onto it in order to start talking back and forth. If you're kind of confused and you don't know exactly what you're looking at, if you just go to the Start Diagnostic tab and hit that, the 2 systems will start talking to each other. It may take it 30-40 seconds before it begins, but it will find out what it's doing and what product you actually have. So you don't have to do this manually. It's a lot faster if you do. If not, as I said, go to the Start Diagnostic and it'll start doing it itself. From there, you can actually go in and you can test individual components, be able to turn them on, turn them off, Fuel prime is just activating the fuel pump itself. Maybe it's a brand new installation. You can use this to go through and prime the fuel. The next tab over is just labeled View, and underneath that you'll have an overview of the system. Example of it is what's being shown here, to where as the product is working, it'll actually show you what the voltage is, what the temperatures are, what the state of each component is as you're operating into it. It'll also show you if there's any faults sitting inside of the diagnostics. Operation data will just give you an overview as far as how many hours have been put onto the heater, show you how many times it's been turned on and off. The device info will just show you the unit serial number, when it was manufactured, things like that. The next tab over is labeled Faults. And under Faults you'll have two tabs. One of them will say View Faults, like you're seeing here. In this instance, it's saying that there's a metering pump interruption. Metering pump is the German version for saying fuel pump. We're metering fuel coming to the heater. It was saying that there was a problem with that and recorded a fault. On the bottom where it says state of fault, it'll either be not actual or actual. Not actual means that it's not occurring right now. Actual means that it is occurring right now and that is a problem. Again, if it was to record that same fault 3 times in a row, it would lock the heater out. You would either have to go through that process of removing fuses and putting them back in, or you could come through the diagnostics here and choose the clear faults and heater interlock. At that point, all of these faults would go away. If you choose this option, as I said, it will unlock the heater and it will clear all of this stuff out of here to where you won't be able to read it anymore. When you do that, you're doing it on the screen here only. You're not doing it inside of the electronics. There is a way for us to go back and actually pull back all of those faults out of there in order to read longer history onto the system. If you have a heater, maybe it's brand new, maybe the bus doesn't have any fuel in it, if there's an instance where the heater itself is working properly, but let's say in a case you don't have any fuel inside of the bus and the heater is not operating, does not fire up, the fault that it will generate will just say no start. And it's a little bit more lenient. It might give you 7 or 8 no starts in a row before it goes to that lockout phase. And it's basically the heater throwing its arms up in the air and saying, I don't know why I'm not firing. I should be, because everything is working. It's not smart enough to know that you didn't put any fuel in the system. So if you do see a no start type of a fault, it just means that for some reason it did not start. Maybe you had air inside of the fuel line, a lot of different things that it can be. You also have an opportunity in here to go back and actually print this page. If you are going to send this product in for warranty, we would kind of appreciate it if you have this system to go ahead and print it out and send it in with the product. A promotion that we're running right now with this, being a new option here at Bluebird, is if you order 10 of these for production, and I don't care if all 10 of them come to the same, going out to the same customer, or you've got 10 different customers ordering one each. If you order 10 of them, send me a note and I will send you this diagnostic system back at no charge. I'll do that for each individual place that you have. If your operation only has one place, I'll send you one out. If you've got 5 different locations and you order it 5 times, I'll send you one for each place. We do have a new timer. We call it a smart temp control. Our vision when we built this was to make it out of the box easy. Much like a Walmart alarm clock, to where you take it out and you plug it in and you You can figure out how to set the time, how to turn the radio on and off, how to use the alarm clock. It's the same thing here. When you put this thing on and you plug it in, it is very, very simple to go through without reading the manual and figure out what's happening with it. This product is coming standard with the thermotop as far as units being made here at Bluebird. Excuse me. Some of the extra features that are on this thing, there's a low voltage disconnect to where if your customers are not, let's say, comfortable running a heater at 11.8 volts, you can actually put that right in there to where at 11.8 the heater itself will turn off, and it will tell you that there's a low voltage indication right on the display. The two lights on the side will actually start blinking at you, telling you that, hey, there is a problem. Hopefully that driver goes back and mentions it back to the mechanic that, hey, you've got a bad battery cell, you got a bad battery, whatever it happens to be. It is a timer where you can set it up for individual programming Monday through Friday and leave it alone, and it'll operate by itself. Much unlike the black rectangular timer that a lot of you guys are probably used to, where you had to have some interaction every single day. You've got 4 different times you can put into it, and you can mix and match between days and times in order to do it. So very, very advanced timer, and it is going to be the timer that we will be using for the long-term future. Just to conclude, I want to let everybody know that Webasto has introduced both a propane and a compressed natural gas product for the school bus market. If you want some more information on these pieces, we can get that to you. If you do have a need to retrofit something, we would ask to be involved and to have proper training on doing such prior to trying to tap into one of these fuel systems. And again, we'll do all that on a one-for-one basis. My contact info is here, and obviously feel free to give me a call if you have the need for such. So with that, I'll give it back to Gina. Again, if you guys have any questions, any concerns, please feel free to contact me. Thanks.
Everyone, the floor is open for questions, comments. Anyone?
I'm good.
I got a question. With the product that you introduced, if a customer currently has one of the competitors' product in there, they would call you if they needed to replace it, swap it out? Is it an easy drop-in replacement?
It's an easy drop-in replacement to the point where you would already have the proper coolant lines ran, and depending on what product that they're using, the fuel line may be able to be used. But as far as the wiring harnesses and the fuel pump, they would have to be changed out.
But to just kind of get with you to double check and say, hey, I got this school district, they're using this, and then and we convince them to use Webasto,
Yes.
what can you do? Okay.
On the excuse me, on the small thermotop product, the fuel line which is used it's a very small, it's a 2 millimeter ID line. It's very important to use the line that comes with the heater, as opposed to with the larger unit you could use an 1/8 inch, quarter inch, whatever happens to be standard fuel line. With the small one, it's very important to use the line that's designated for it. Some of the products that are out there as far as competitors use that same type of line on some of their products.
And then the product that you had showed prior to the thermotop,
It's a Scholastic, the big one.
the big one, and then is there like a quick reference that Webasto has, say for instance if a dealer saying, okay, it's the pump that's messed up, so I need to order it. Is there a part number that these guys can just reference to and say, this is what I need because I already did the diagnostic? And
There is a manual available online that has great part explosions to it. Absolutely.
okay.
Any follow-up questions from anyone? Well, if there's no follow-up questions, I would encourage everyone out there to share the that there is another presentation this afternoon at 2 o'clock. Please encourage your parts counter, your service, your sales reps to attend, and also that additionally this will be posted on the Bluebird Parts and Service YouTube channel. That there is a wealth of information here that everyone can benefit from this. What Paul shared today from Webasto, that if you do not know about your parts and what you're selling, that the technical information does help you, and you can communicate better to your end users. If you do not understand what you're selling and how it works, you do benefit from this internally and out there in the field. We do encourage it. And as a follow-up, the promo does last until December 15th. And if you are buying, selling any of those products, we encourage you to take advantage of that. Thank you so much, and we'll see you at 2 o'clock today.
Thanks, Paul.
See y'all.
Yeah, I forgot to mention about the warranty. What's the warranty?